Hello everyone, it is the Last Beluga here. So as you can see, it's not a Let's Play this time. I'm not playing through Caveman to Cosmos right now, but since it is E3, and since I do play, Civilization all the time, I decided to talk about the upcoming Sid Meier's Civilization game, my take on it, my thoughts as a person who's played, obviously, many Civilization games and, played through them since way back. I think Civilization 2 was my first, but played through a lot of them since then. Went back, and it's really interesting because obviously with E3, there's more images that have been posted, more conversations that they've been mentioned, and we kind of got at least a bit of a better date for this. It's supposed to be, I believe, third quarter this year, so we're talking around July-ish into the summer, somewhere around then is the best idea. So we'll start with what we know, and then we'll go to my opinion of it. So what we know is obviously this game is going to take place outside of Earth. It still shares the same 4X, the same regular Civ strategy to it. It seems to be kind of like the updated version of Alpha Centauri. And for those who don't know that, that's a game that, was way back, goes way, way back. And it was the same sort of ideas that, after you got your science victory, it was moving on and discovering what was outside Alpha Centauri and life on there. And it seems, at least from what they're mentioning in there, that it's using Civ 5 graphics to project Alpha Centauri onto it. They mentioned that, the idea of cities, city-based progression, leaders, time, the way that you move, the turn-based, all of that very similar. It was mentioned in the interview that the techs would start like more normalized and then move into like the fantastical outside of it, which is not unheard of, especially for anybody who's played Alpha Centauri. It seems to get like really out there by the end of it. It goes actually in different directions, and this is an interesting one. Like, Civilization obviously has a linear tech tree, it just goes down a path. However, they mentioned that in Beyond Earth it has a tech web which kind of branches off into different ways, so it'll be one that's obviously geared more towards science or more towards economy, and it forces you to choose like one path which you go down, which is going to be really interesting to manage. Obviously, there's going to be overlap. There's going to be a central one, and there's going to be overlap, but it's going to be interesting from a strategy perspective. Like, how far do you go down the economy line before doubling back? Which will be interesting. One of the other ones is that it introduces new things. Well, it also mentions specifically that it doesn't allow technology trading between civilizations, which is really interesting to me. And it also mentions that it's impossible to get all the techs in one game, so it really forces you to pick a style of play, which I'll comment on later on. It also mentions that there'll be something new called affinities, which are kind of like philosophies on how you should advance, and apparently they shape the player's technology advancement and unlock affinity unique units. So obviously, if you took a more like militaristic approach, or you took a more harmonizing approach, it would be different in the units that you would get. And it was mentioned in one of the interviews by one of the people, like if you go like the Harmony route, which is kind of blending with the Earth, for anybody who's played Alpha Centauri, they realize that the Earth is actually, like the planet you're on, is sentient. You get units that are specifically designed for that. It mentions here, like the Supremacy Affinity puts its trust in advancing technology and utilizes highly specialized units that aid each other in the field. So obviously, it's more of like a conquest style. I'm not sure how the victory modes are going to work. I assume it's going to be your classic mishmash of ones that are there. Assume that there's something that's like a conquest related or domination. I can't see it being anything like that. This is really, like, pretty surprisingly all we know about this game. But it is interesting. There are obviously some pretty glaring changes. You can also create your own civilization, which would obviously have your own affinity to it. So you would make your own name and just go for it. It seems to be really similar. It seems to be continuing on with the style that was in the other, well, at least in Caveman to Cosmos. I know that you could pick traits. It seems to be something along those lines as well, where you could have like specific traits. Um, and that's not unheard of to do something like that. There are certainly at least mods that I've played which allow you to do that specifically. Um, However, this seems to be more than the traits. This seems to be like designing you to go down one route, which I have like issues with, like personally. Although I'm not going to be like prejudged or biased towards this. I am interested in it, and certainly I will probably buy it when it comes out. There's no question. Um, it seems to have everything, which is like a normal Civ game, like the same leader, same everything. But this, the tech and the affinity, I'm not sure how it's going to play, like how it's going to play out. It seems like it's forcing you to make a decision when you start the game on how you want to play, and I like to be at least more fluid in the way that I play to be able to react. Obviously, like to anybody who's watched my Let's Plays, you notice that sometimes I'll go down one tech path a little bit more than another when the time is right. In a time of peace, it's easier to go for the research ones, or it's a prime time to get the military up before the war. Um, and anybody who's actually played like Beyond the Sword, not even Caveman to Cosmos, with its sprawling tech tree and how crazy that is, even in the regular game, it becomes like, although it becomes very specific. If you want to go for a conquest route, you need to plan it at least at the higher levels. In like the lower levels, like noble difficulty or something like that, you're able to kind of play around, see who you're up against, see what you're playing, and then decide what you want to do. Being focused in on one path right off the beginning is an interesting decision. It means that like you would need to learn to play as different styles in order to do different things, but it also means that you're not adaptable. Like for all you know, you could end up facing off against somebody who's huge conquest and you chose harmonizing, or you're facing off against the guy who's really heavy research and you're harmonizing again. Like you could be stuck. You could be really screwed halfway through that you're picking all the texts which seem to be peaceful because you haven't actually come in contact with anybody, and then boom, they're legions ahead of you because you weren't prepared in the military tech and you got to start off from the beginning, which it kind of screws you over a little bit. I have no idea how the web is going to interact with one another, i.e., like what the prerequisites are for text. But I mean, by the sounds of it, it seems like you really pick one and you're able to stick on it, and that's an interesting decision. It seems to kind of go against what there was before. Like I remember even in Alpha Centauri, there was no concept of that. I mean, you could go for the victories that you wanted to go for, but every civilization had the ability to go for whichever victory they wanted to, or whichever was best suited at that time. Sure, there were ones that were better suited than others, but you could still do it. You could still, you could win a conquest victory with Gandhi in Civ 4. There's no question about that. Certainly with Montezuma, but I mean, it's like it doesn't make sense that I need to like start off like the game and then predeterminedly say I'm going to be going for an economic victory because that is all I am able to do. And I may be getting the wrong impression from this, at least by what they're saying, but it certainly strikes me as at least interesting. I have no idea how it will play out. I really hope the tech tree is enough like substance in it, because for me the tech trees are the most interesting part, and not having tech trading between people I understand as like a balancing sort of thing. Um, but again, it's limiting you like very harshly to one side, and that is interesting to me. Like I'm reading another one here. The other one, purity. The purity affinity is isolationist, building powerful defensive structures and attempting to make the planet more Earth-like. Okay, so for argument's sake, I've now been completely isolationist. For all I know, surrounded by me are conquest-heavy people. That's fantastic. Right? That's great then. Purity is perfect. I have strong defensive structures. I'll be able to withhold any attack. But let's just say that around them were more harmony people. Then that means all my defensive structures are useless for what their objective was, which was to be defensive. Like there's no morphing side of it. And because of that, I mean, I guess I'd be going down the tech path, which would have all of everything to terraform, the planet to be like Earth, or supremacy, something like that. That would be able to be the more conquest style. There was another one that they mentioned that was like resending ships back to Earth to emancipate them there. Like it seems to be interesting, and there is more which needs to come out, at least for me, to understand it more. But at least where we are right now, it's lending itself to a very interesting path. One which I hope is not streamlined. I loved Civ 4, but one of the things was like it seems to be with Civ 5 they cut down on so much content, even from like Civ 4 and Beyond the Sword. I'm not even talking Caveman to Cosmos and what the beautiful job they did there, but like from Civ 4 to Civ 5 they've cut it down, and now from Civ 5, a game which was still open ended, they seem to be limiting it again and saying like, okay, now you need to pick one thing off of the beginning. Um, and I'm not sure that's the best direction to go. You know, I remember times where, here's an example. In Alpha Centauri, you were able to prototype units. You could build different types of units which had different armor, different speed, different weapons. All of them. Each time, it was very expensive to prototype units and it cost a lot of energy, but you could prototype them. And that was cool because that means every time that you played the game, of course you'd end up settling into a routine, but in theory, every time that you play the game, you could use different units. Every time that you wanted like a quick scout to see what your enemy was up to, boom, you can do it. You could sit there and just charge him down as quick as you can. All speed, no armor, barely any weapons, and it's just your pure scout. And I'm not asking for that again, but that was the type of open, strategy game that you can do. And that's the essence of strategy. I should not be told what my strategy is going to be beginning the game because that ruins it for me. That means that I'm not thinking anymore. I'm not actually like trying to beat the game. Oh, the scan's complete. I'm not trying to beat the game. I am now essentially listening to what they are telling me is the best route to go. And I'm not overly keen on that. However, we shall see what happens. So, yeah, look forward to that. Enjoy E3 to all of you who are watching. It's a lot of fun. Oh, found and fixed threads. Well, there you go. So it will be, it's probably just the cookies. It'll probably be really interesting. And who knows? It was obviously mentioned just like a little bit of, I guess, a preamble at the back. It was mentioned on April 12th, 2014 at PAX East, and is going to be probably mentioned again at some point now in E3. So keep an eye out for that. Take a look. I know I certainly will, and we'll see how this goes. This very interesting development. So thank you all for watching. This has been the Last Beluga with a short little ramble on Beyond Earth. Sid Meier's Civilization Beyond Earth. Take care, everyone. Bye.